Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday afternoon, and welcome to the reintroduction of ICE, which stands for Inspire, Collaborate, and Encourage. Um, Jay and I did this a couple of years ago, and it kind of dropped off with our health issues and life. And I'm really excited to be bringing it back. My first guest, I'm super excited for. His name is Chaz Foster. I met him in the bariatric community on TikTok, and he just really inspires me with his attitude of gratitude and mental mindset, all those things. Chaz is 46 years old. He's a single dad, originally from California, but he moved to OKC in '99. He's a realtor by day and DJ by night, and inspiration to us all. He had sleeve surgery in on October 7th of 2022, so just a little bit before me, and he's down 90 pounds, and I'm super proud of him. So I'm going to pop him up on the screen. Welcome, Chaz. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Did I get all that right?
Yeah, that's a mouthful. You nailed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I read over my notes several times because, I just kind of got a little paranoid about that. Hi, Chuck. People will pop into the comments. So just a little bit of housekeeping. StreamYard likes to get permission from Facebook. So we are streaming to a couple different places on Facebook. So if it's coming up Facebook user for you, type in, it's coming along the bottom here, StreamYard.com/Facebook, and that will give StreamYard permission to show your name. That way we don't have to call you Facebook user. Because some
So
people say F you, and that's just rude.
Yeah.
How was your day today?
It's been great. It's been really, really good. How about yours?
Wonderful. It's a little dreary here today, though. I'm ready for sunshine, and it's not coming fast enough, but it will.
Yeah, I totally get it. Same here. It was like in Oklahoma, the weather changes like every hour. It seems like it's pouring down rain and cloudy now. And yesterday it was sunny and beautiful. So you just make the best of it, But hey, I want to thank you, first of all, for having me on, allowing me to be a part of this. And I'm so excited for what you're doing with this ICE, the whole concept of what you do with Inspire, Collaborate, and Encourage. I think that that's really important. So I just wanted to take a second to thank you so much.
Thank you. It really came about during a really hard time in my life, and it's kind of how I made it through. And it's unfortunate that it fell by the wayside for a while, but it was just this really odd moment a week or so ago when I talked to you. It had been on my mind, and then I just decided to do it. And actually, right before bed one night, I'm like, Jay, by the way, ICE is back as of March 30th. And he's like, okay. He goes, you have a guest already? I'm like, I sure do. He's like, what do you need me for?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Normally he would be producing, but when I reenacted our account, I think something happened and he didn't have permissions to get in here. So I'm like, I'll just wing it today.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing about, I get asked all the time about podcasts and how do you start a podcast and what are the steps and how do you make it look easy and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, literally it's this easy. Just start,
Yeah.
figure it out as you go,
Absolutely.
So yeah, if anybody just wants to start a podcast, just start it.
And there's so many tools now. I know that Sherry uses, oh, now I lost it. She uses another service that's like this one. There's several out there. It's nice because you can hook it up to different destinations. Like right now we're streaming to YouTube, the ICE page on Facebook, and I think my personal Facebook page. And then it can be shared, which is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. And so like my podcast, I don't use a third party service like this. But I do audio and video like you. And then it just goes out on, all the platforms and as well as YouTube. So even if using like a third party like this sounds overwhelming for somebody, you can literally just start. Even if you just want an audio version. I told somebody last week, like if you want to start with the audio version, you can podcast from your phone now. And I know people that are multi 6, 7, 8-figure earners in business that do their podcast twice a week from their phone. So you can do it however. You just got to start and you'll grow as you go,
A funny fact about me that most people don't believe anymore is I used to be incredibly shy, introverted, didn't want to talk to anybody. And I really learned how to put myself out there from being in a networking group, which was very painful for me at first. And then I started doing Facebook lives. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And if I mess up, if I lose my words, whatever, I'll just laugh at myself and carry on.
Mhm.
So, really, that as I've matured has gotten me through a lot of tough situations.
Mhm.
So, I highly recommend you can do anything you put your mind to. So,
Absolutely.
all right, well, let's dig into you because I I love hearing other people's stories, and especially when it comes to, well, with anything, but the bariatric side is very near and dear to my heart right now because I know what it's done for my life.
Mhm.
um, Things have improved so drastically, and especially like even in like the last 2 3 weeks I've really noticed a change, and people noticing not necessarily so much the weight loss. People don't really comment on that to me. It's you smile for the first
Mhm.
time in like years. I was a pretty unhappy person because I was in pain all the time,
Sure.
and you look healthy, what are you doing type
Mhm.
thing. And I'm like, everyone should know what I'm doing because I'm not some people hide it. I put it out there because if I
Mhm.
can help one person to maybe make the decision one way or the other, or to inspire them to take their health into their own hands, then that makes me happy.
Absolutely.
um, so at what point, what was going on in your life that made you decide that surgery was an option for you?
Yes, I mean, I've battled with my weight my entire life, and I mean, long story short, probably it was April of 2021. Um, gosh, 21, yeah, 21, I think.
Mhm.
Um, that's so crazy. But I just I remember the day I was like, I can try and figure it out forever, or I can go a different route. I was totally anti weight loss surgery. I always had this mindset of like, as an obese person, or I'm morbidly obese, but I'm throwing stones at people that are changing their life. Like that's what's wrong with our mindset and our mentality.
Mhm.
I'm like, well, why would I do that? It wasn't ever like hate on anybody else, but my thought was,
Right.
if if I don't have the discipline today, then how in the world would I have weight loss surgery and then have to be disciplined to eat or drink these smaller amounts, right? And it's just I never was able to correlate the two until
Mhm.
this one day. I was like, well, I can keep making excuses, I can keep going up and down, I can keep having these weight loss journeys, or I can do something drastic to make a massive change in my life. And so I started out, literally the way it started is I started asking questions. I knew a few people that had some success way before I ever got involved in TikTok or anything like that. I
Mhm.
mean, I've had a pretty big social media world, but not with bariatrics, you know.
Right.
So I just asked friends. I knew a guy that had gone to Mexico and did it, and I asked him about it, and he had great success. I asked another person. Then it was so crazy how God showed up, because all of a sudden, like, I started hearing from friends that I hadn't talked to in a long time. And I'm like, hey, what have you been up to? And like, this one girl was like, she lives in Texas. She's like, oh, I actually just had weight loss surgery about a month ago. I'm like, you're kidding. And so, like, boom, there was more resources, more resources, more resources. And then I prayed about it, talked to my family about it, and I thought, if it's supposed to be, it'll be. Talked to my doctor. My doctor agreed, and I moved forward. And then I totally put it in God's hands. Like, however this is supposed to play out, it will. If the insurance is supposed to cover it, it'll cover it. If I am supposed to be a good candidate, I'll be a good candidate. And that was when the shift happened. And so I'm thankful that I did. And I don't necessarily think it's the answer for everybody. I think it starts with your mindset. So
Right. You have to be kind of at a point where you're ready.
yeah.
For me, I was tired of, I was heading for a wheelchair.
Uh-huh.
I was walking with a cane. I was miserable. I had lost my smile, and everything was such a chore. I
Mm.
mean, by the time it was 7 o'clock, I was exhausted and ready to just go to bed. And I'm like, I don't want to live like this anymore. And what finally pushed me over the edge is that I had hurt my knee, and I had an orthopedic surgeon that was really rude to me about it. And I finally was like, but what would you have me do? I don't eat horribly. I mean, granted, I was an avid Coke drinker, but it's not like we sat around and ate chocolate all the time and what have you, and ate out all the time. And he didn't have anything to really say about that because I'm like, I used to do CrossFit, and I'm like, it's not for lack of trying here. And so he's finally the one that recommended, have you thought about doing this? I'm like, I would love to talk to somebody and find out more about it.
Mm-hmm.
I had been to, Jay and I went to a lap band seminar years ago, and it freaked me out.
Yeah.
I was like, no thanks. But having then fast forward to be in that position, lap band, people have had mixed reviews. A lot of people are having revisions from it now, but I was ready to talk about the options, whether it was medication or surgery or what have you, and started the process. So,
Very cool.
and it literally, I think, saved my life,
Yeah. It's
in the
interesting.
long
You
run.
said something about like, being ready. When you started to talk about that, you were like you said something about like being ready to do it. I wasn't ready. I actually had a delay of about 6 months based on like I had to do a sleep apnea test, and then I couldn't get
Mm-hmm.
a CPAP machine. There was all these delays, and I started to find myself frustrated, and I'm convinced that like I needed that time. Not to be weird, but I think God like needed me to have that extra time. Not extra time like let's eat for 6 more months, but more like I need to absorb what's going to change for the entire rest of my life.
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
had to like process that, and so I believe that. And so like a lot of people say, you know, like people say, "Do you have any regrets?" And I swear it's like 90% of the people say the only regret is I wish I'd have done it sooner. And I tell people honestly, I'm not a regret guy, but I don't know that
Mm-hmm.
I would have wanted to do it sooner because I'm not sure I would have been mentally ready for it. In
Right.
fact, to be honest, I'm not sure I'm mentally ready today, and I'm almost 6 months out.
There are definitely things that people don't understand. Um, they think that, oh, you took the easy way out. I've not had that directed at me, but I've talked to several people that they've
Sure.
had that, and it's been like horrifying to them that people think that.
Mhm.
And I'm like, anyone can follow me around on a day-to-day basis, and it definitely is not the easiest thing I've ever done, because now I have the stomach that I call her Karen the terrorist sometimes, because some days she doesn't like anything.
Yeah.
And so the weight doesn't just fall off. Actually, I've been in a situation where I have not been getting enough in. So I really believe my body thinks it's in starvation mode. So it's a constant thought process of, what am I going to eat? When am I going to eat? When am I going to make sure I'm having my water
Right.
and vitamins and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
it definitely, I think people need to investigate. And I think from what I've heard and research now, a lot more is going the route of medication first. So there's more options than what there have been in the past, which is great. And I love the fact that a lot of programs do take that mental component into effect. Like my program, there were so many things that you had to go through. It was a 6 month process. And I was happy for those 6 months.
Sure.
It was just one of those things. I'm going to pop this comment up here because Chuck's exactly right. Um, God put you where you needed to be when you needed to be there, and I
Oh yeah,
absolutely
100%.
believe that.
It's true, Chuck. Absolutely right, man. That's
Yeah.
that's totally the truth.
So you might have said this before, and sometimes numbers don't stick in my in
It's okay.
my head.
Same.
How long did your process take? And
Like from the time I went in and was interested.
yeah.
Okay, so ironically, and I don't know exact timelines, but ironically, for me, they actually told me I had to go through the medical side before I could qualify for the surgical side. So it's funny you brought up that. I
Hmm.
didn't even know that was a thing, nor was I interested, frankly.
Right.
But basically, I had to like, I don't know if you'd call it qualify. I mean, I had
Hmm.
to go through some steps. So I had to meet with the medical side. I had to do labs on the medical side. Then I had to meet a dietitian. Excuse me. And then once they deemed like, yeah, you're a good candidate for surgery, then they shifted me over to their side, which this particular clinic has both. And I had it done here in the U.S. in Norman, Oklahoma.
Hmm.
And so I just they shifted me over to the surgical side, met with a doctor. Um, so I mean, start to finish, it was probably 10 months or so. But I
Okay.
mean, the first couple months, at least 2 months was the medical side, and then they shifted me over,
Gotcha.
which I knew was the goal. Like I wasn't
Hmm.
interested in the medical side. I just knew that they apparently, like based on insurance and stuff, that's what they have. This particular place, that's the avenue they have to go. So I just wrote it out and trusted this is the program. And so yeah, that's yeah.
Awesome. I know there's people in here that aren't from the bariatric community. A lot of my decorated apparel industry friends are here. There's different types of surgery. Lap band isn't as prevalent anymore because there's been some issues with it.
Mhm.
I had gastric bypass where they actually reroute things, but it leaves my old part of my stomach in there. And you had sleeve gastrectomy where they actually remove 80%. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then there's also the duodenal switch, and I don't understand that as much. There's some other types as well. And some people, and I found this interesting, getting to know some of the Canadian bariatric people, that they typically start out with one and then they end up with a revision to the
Mhm.
switch or what have you. So
Yeah,
it's
ironically,
interesting.
it is. I just yesterday found out that there are some people that will have the sleeve, and then in fact, the way I heard it was there's a Facebook support group for just for the clinic I went to, and that's
Hmm.
they asked the question like, "Hey, does this office do a revision from sleeve to bypass?" Which I didn't know was a thing. And so it was really, really cool to know that. And that like gives me hope that if there's ever a reason I want to, because I'll be honest, like I don't have any regrets at all, not one bit.
Hmm.
Um, and I will also say that I have what I think is that the people that I never wanted bypass, that wasn't even a thing to me. Sleeve was what I
Yeah.
researched, sleeve was what I wanted. The only concern to that would have been if I had any like acid reflux issues, which I didn't. And so my doctor said I'm a great candidate for sleeve. Uh,
Hmm.
but now, like again, no regrets. But I will say that I think a larger percent of the people that I've seen with quicker results and maybe more significant results have had the bypass.
Yeah.
Um, and again, at this point, 80, almost 90 pounds down, no regrets.
Hmm.
But if at some point there is a stoppage, which, I don't think there will be before I get to my goal weight, but if there were, it's kind of cool to know that I actually still have another option of perhaps a revision. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, I had heard that there were revisions, and I was actually the opposite. I went in wanting bypass, A, because I had horrible acid reflux, but also it freaked me out at the thought of having part of my stomach actually physically removed from,
Oh, I
from
love
my
it.
body.
I've been wanting to remove it since I was 18.
I don't know, something in my head was just terrified of that.
Yeah.
And now another bariatric brother, Craig, he's had some complications. He's having a feeding tube, and so they're routing that through his remainder of his stomach that was there. So it's
Yeah.
interesting at what they can do. I'm sure they could still do something for sleeve gastrectomy, but it's fascinating to see how things work.
It
I just
really
wanted to
is.
say hi to Dee Dee. We know her as Dee Dee,
What's up,
the
Dee?
Danielle.
Yeah, I haven't followed what's going on with Craig very
Hmm.
well. I mean, I've seen everybody talking about it today on TikTok.
Hmm.
Um, and I did happen to catch him talking the other day a little bit about on his live. But what I will say is that also he's a great example of the what's up, Tommy? He's a great example, Craig is, of like everybody's body does something different.
Yeah.
You look at like Brett in Canada, like his results, like he had surgery, I mean, I think maybe a month before me, roughly. And he's like, his result is insane in a really short amount of time.
Yes.
And then if you start getting in the comparison game, that really will play tricks with your head. I try to really do my best
Mhm.
not to prescribe to that, but it's crazy what your body does. And then, like, you look at Craig, I mean, he wasn't huge before, but he is so thin now. And it's obviously
Mhm.
he's having other struggles to jump through. So everybody's body does different things.
Yeah.
And I would say if there's people that are, Mandy, if there's people that are interested in whatever bariatric um, route they want to go, I would
Mhm.
just say that just know that everybody's body is going to be different. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the comparison thing is horrible.
Mhm.
I wasn't involved in the TikTok community until after surgery, and I honestly, the people who come in and embrace it first, I think, are ahead of the game. I didn't even dawn on me to even look, but um, just know, for anyone who's wanting any type of support like that, you think of TikTok as such an odd place to get support, but it's really wonderful. I mean, you always have a couple that probably maybe aren't your cup of tea, but for the most part, I've experienced nothing but love and support. When I was having some
Yeah.
struggles too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
um,
been
there's been
There's
that.
way more good than bad in the TikTok world. Yes, there are some
Absolutely.
some some toxic people, but it's such a
Mhm.
much smaller amount than the goodness, you know.
Absolutely. So, what has been your biggest obstacle since surgery? Have you had any obstacles?
Uh yeah, you know, I had heard of body dysmorphia. I
Hmm.
know of this. I have this friend in Arkansas, and she's like drop dead model material.
Hmm.
And I remember a couple years ago, she was telling me that she struggles with body dysmorphia, and it was like very foreign. It was almost like she was speaking a different language to me. Because even though I'm big, like I've struggled with my weight mentally and physically and emotionally forever since I was 18. But the word body dysmorphia was never a part of it
Hmm.
until I had weight loss surgery. And then it all made sense. And
Yes.
even when she told me this, like I'm thinking, dude, people would die to look like you. Like this
Hmm.
girl, like uh, I didn't understand that. I'm like, she's got a problem. Like she's got low self esteem. Like I mean, I'm just being honest. That's how I like
Hmm.
thought about it. And then
Yep.
once I had surgery, and the way it started for me was my first comparison picture. I made a picture, like 4 pictures, front, back, side, right before surgery, like day before.
Hmm.
I did it at 1 week. I did it at 2 weeks. The 1 week, I was like, showed my mom. She's like, oh, yeah, it's noticeable. At 2 weeks, I didn't see any difference at all. Three
Right.
week and 4 week, I saw nothing. At 4 weeks, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to start doing it once a month because this is not good
Yeah.
psychologically. Like I'm
Right.
literally, I'm down like 40 pounds and I don't see it, you
Yep.
know, and that is, so that's probably the biggest, the hardest thing for me. I never knew that was a thing. It's very, very real. It's
Hmm.
very, very real. I think
Yes.
it's different for everybody because I think your struggles with body dysmorphia will be different than mine. I look at some of
Yes.
the people in the comments that are bariatric friends as well. I know all theirs are going to be different as well.
Yes.
But it's real. That's been the biggest obstacle is that.
For me, I was so thankful that I had Jay take the photos before surgery, even though I really didn't want to, because there are times, and I only do it once a month or month ish, um, because I couldn't tell.
Mhm.
Even with my clothes fitting differently, in my mind, I still had this block of I'm still as big as I was. And there was one time, like about a month ago, I just had it in my head, nope, I'm done losing. This is as much as I'm going to lose. And it was just silly. So I really have to like give myself pep talks of like, okay, this isn't real. You're imagining this. Just keep going. How do you feel? I measure a lot more on how I feel, what my mobility is, what can I do differently than about the weight. The weight is a great added bonus for
Mhm.
me.
I've heard you talk about that, and I love that. I love that and there's several people that will really just see how what their body feels like versus what
Hmm.
the scale looks like or what the mirror, and I don't disagree, but it's still a
Hmm.
real struggle.
Yeah, and you can really get, even the strongest person, I think, can get wrapped up in the body dysmorphia
Mhm.
and the mind games, because it is a trip sometimes.
For sure.
What has surprised you through the process? Has there been anything that stuck out to you?
There's a ton of things, but just off the top of my head, two things, the two surprises. One is um that this is really real. Like
Hmm.
it's really real. A complete opposite of talking about body dysmorphia. The flip side, when your mind is healthy, you're like, this is so real. Holy cow, this is
Yeah.
real. Um, so I'm like 20 pounds away from the lie that I had on my license since I was 18 years old. Like I've always said I weigh 220. And I'm right now, I'm going up and down, but I'm right around 240, 242.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I'm 20 pounds from the lie that I told all these years that I was 220. I was never 220. I mean, I probably was when I was 16, you know? And so now that's not my goal weight, but it's funny
Hmm.
because it's like, it's in sight. Like I'm like the weight that I always like fibbed about is becoming real. So there was the fact that like this is real, right? And then the other part is, it's funny that Dee Dee's on here because I had this conversation with her last week. I'm like, it's so crazy. So my goal, I had like 4 goals in the beginning, and
Hmm.
I'll just share them really quick. So I
Sure.
started this journey. My highest weight was 365. I was 334 September 1st, and then weight and surgery was 5 weeks later. I was at 313 on surgery day, and so today I'm floating between 240, 242 ish. I'm just yo-yoing right now,
Yeah.
but so I had a few goals. My first goal was to be under 278 because that's the lowest I ever got when I lost weight a few years ago, which was just doing it kind of naturally. So I
Very
wanted to be
nice.
under 278 because that showed what was possible.
Yes.
And then my next goal was to be in a 2X shirt. And then my final goal at that time, I have added a few in since then, but then my final goal was to be at 199. I wanted to be under 200. Now I don't know if 199 is where I'll feel healthy. Maybe 205. It may be 180, but I won't know until I get there. So
Mm-hmm.
the surprise, the part two to all that is that I I'm comfortably wearing pretty much every 2X shirt now. And that was like my goal. But I'm like, wait a minute, the 2X version of me, like this is a 2X shirt. And this is absolutely not the I mean, like, I'm still a
Mm-hmm.
solid 45 pounds from where I truly want to be. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, my goal of 2X, not only has it been surpassed, but I realize now that like the 2X version of myself that I saw as a 4X wearer
Mm-hmm.
is actually bigger than who I'm going to become. Like there's no doubt as I progress, like I will 100% be in an XL, and there might even be a day it's a large. It's not my goal, but
Right.
the way
Right.
things are tracking, I'm like, I mean, XL, no doubt about it, because I'm about to be too big, too small for double X. So that was surprise wise. That's probably it. It's like, oh my gosh, my mind wasn't even expanded that big,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
heard someone on the live last night say someone asked them what size shirt they were. And she said medium. And then the follow up question, do you still feel weird saying that? She goes, yeah, I feel like an imposter.
Yeah.
Um,
100%. That's whoever said that. It's so real. Like I
mhm,
totally 100% get it. It's like today, this morning, like I look in the mirror before I get in the shower and I'm like, I feel like the same version of myself as 6 or 7 months ago.
mhm,
It's not, I mean, not only is there almost 100 pounds getting there, but, two shirt sizes, three jean sizes, and down a shoe size. Who knew that? Right.
I know that
Uh,
trips me out.
so there's like there's proof beyond proof beyond proof.
Mhm,
And then I'm still like, don't even feel like the guy that wears a double X shirt,
mhm.
So yeah, I get it. That body dysmorphia, man, it's a game.
Let me just see what my next question was. Like I've said, we've connected through the TikTok community, and you really it resonated with me on a lot of different levels. A lot of it was you talking about gratitude, not only on TikTok but on Facebook, since we're Facebook friends as well. Um, but how has your mindset and gratitude helped you through this journey and actually through life? Because I have a feeling that you used that even before.
Yeah, way before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really great question. If there's anything if I could ever convey anything to anyone, whether they see this podcast in a year from now or today live as we're talking,
Mm-hmm.
um, mindset it's not some of it, it's all of it. It's 100% all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because without the mindset, the other pieces can't fall.
Right.
It's just not. If it's like if it's Tetris, if mindset is the border, the pieces cannot physically fall in place. For example, I'll try not to go on too long on the tangent
You're
on this,
fine.
but for example, there are a lot of people, since we're talking bariatrics, that are like, yeah, like people always say it's so it's the easy route. Well, nobody has said it's the easy route to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason, 100%, Tanya, is because that's not something I allow in my universe. Like I am not looking to attract people on social media, and I'm very public. I don't. I'm not looking for people to find negatives. Like I don't. That's not even. I don't even prescribe to that.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I haven't had anybody say it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that's also why I'm not going to make posts about it. Like
Right.
some people think it's hard because is it real? Is it true that some people say that? For sure. Has it happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
No. Does it happen to a lot of people? Heck yeah. I hear stories of family members being terrible to people. But guess what?
Right.
I am not going to prescribe to it. I'm also not going to sit and let you linger in it.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're not going to impact me in that, so it's like for
Yeah.
me, it's absolutely a pot of mindset is the master of all that. And again, when you don't allow some things in, and you have boundaries, then the great things flow. And so it sounds rah. And there's probably somebody on the other end of this that's like, bleh, because they're in a bad space. Well, guess what? I'm in a bad space today. Like I'm the scale's up 2 pounds. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in a good headspace right now. But but I know that it's temporary. I know that
Yes.
it's just a little piece of this very big pie or this very big journey, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
um, but to give a brief backstory, I have always, generally speaking, been a positive person. I was in network marketing for and multi-level marketing for years, and for a few years. I started in 2016, and while I knew nothing about that industry, while I'm also glad I'm not in it and never will I do it again, I'm also grateful for the ride. You know, I learned
Yes.
it blessed me in a lot of ways, and I remember having a conversation with my mom. Thank you, Dee Dee. I remember having a conversation with my mom one day back in 2016, and because I started to be introduced to this thing, it was called personal development, which I'd never
Mm-hmm.
heard those words. And I remember my mom saying, my mom's really supportive, but I remember her saying like, what did she use? That she used a word that was like from the 80s or 90s. It was like life coach. She used some word that was like basically what she was saying was it's like rah rah. You know, she wasn't
Mm-hmm.
trying to be mean, but she's like, oh yeah, the rah rah stuff. That's not the word she used, but it was along those lines.
Right.
And I remember kind of sort of like that felt kind of yucky.
Mm-hmm.
But then the more I was engaged in personal development, I realized like what a humongous piece of that of my life that became and has been to this day. And I hope to share that with everybody. Just like I said a minute ago, if there's anything somebody takes, it's the importance of the positivity mindset. And so I would say that's where I deep dove into things
Mm-hmm.
like Audible books and watching. I watched so many YouTube videos of so many successful people, whether it was and that even back then, some of them were weight loss stories, some of them were business stories, some of them were just life stories. But I just started to absorb all that, and then that's when that shift happened. Again, I wasn't negative to positive. I was more of a positive person, but then my mindset made a shift that this is the only tolerable thing. This is the
Yes.
only thing I will tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes life sucks. When COVID hit in March of 2020, it devastated tons of people. It was
Yeah.
the biggest, most up, like I had my life changed in the most great ways ever during that season. And that is not ever to disqualify the struggles that many, it's a very scary season for people. I chose to stay neutral, calm, confident, blinders on, focus forward, no negative. I refuse to subscribe to prescribe to anything negative. And yes, that's hard. And yes, again, there's
Mm-hmm.
people that are like, whatever, of course, because you're struggling. Like when you're struggling, you don't want to hear these kind of things. Like somebody is struggling today and they don't want to hear this,
Right.
because that's not natural. For like we put our guard. It's a message today and asking like, I haven't seen you on TikTok Live lately, and I'm like, yeah, I've just been busy, which is very true. I have been busy, but I also am not in a great headspace to be like, I'm not gonna lie to people, so
Right.
I can't hear like I have to just stay true to me. And so yeah, I'm like, there's moments you don't want to. Misery loves company, right? So when you're not feeling good, you don't necessarily want to be a part of that. But to tie that all up, mindset and positivity have been a thing for me for years. But
Mm-hmm.
for people that maybe don't get it, or maybe it's not natural, I would say, because I challenge people to this, is just find one little thing to make different every day. Sometimes it's like, say three positive things. That's a little cheesy to me. There's times I challenge people to that. There's times I challenge myself to that. There's times I need
Mm-hmm.
to be challenged. There's also times where I'm resistant to that because I'm like, no, I don't want to play this. That's a silly game. It's kind of gimmicky. But the reality is it's like this. It's so much harder to talk about negative things than positive things. It's like our body naturally goes into a smile. Our face is structured to smile, not frown.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make a mental note of that too, and you mentally smile instead of mentally frowning, it will snowball into just more and more positive things. Right?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. And along kind of those same lines is starting right before COVID is when Jay had his massive heart attack. So 2020 started out in such a traumatic way. And fast forward 3 months and the world shuts down. And so my whole thing became choose.
Mm-hmm.
It was choose happy, choose joy, choose to make it the next 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I tell this to people all the time, sometimes I would have to choose that same thing every 5 minutes to put one step in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that helped me to hone what was important to me and how I was going to survive.
Yeah.
And actually, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, a Facebook memory popped up. And I ended up being one of those girls that bawled on TikTok because I was so thankful.
Yeah.
You know, if we wouldn't have been through all those hard things, I wouldn't have that to look back on
Yeah.
and be like, we made it. We
Mhm.
are freaking strong rock stars.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I wouldn't have gotten to that point.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a natural thing for people to be positive. But if
Mhm.
you make the effort, even in small increments, and it reminds me of MOBA, because
Mhm.
MOBA is not just exercise; it's, you know, master of badassery. For those that don't know, it's a another berry person. Um, but just choosing to do little things to improve your life so it gets better day in
For
and day
sure.
out. So
You know,
that
and it's
that's
interesting
helped
you
me.
talk about MOBA because like whenever I heard Master of Badassery, like I didn't even think of it physically. Like I thought of it mentally immediately. I still think of it more mental than physical, although like it there's, you know, a huge part of that community is like, and I'm not super alpha either, so to me it's not like go pump iron MOBA. Like that's just not who that's not me. I love
Mhm.
it for the people that it does work for, you know. But yeah, it is the mental side of it. So, you know, I agree. It's and I'm proud of you. Just want to acknowledge you for that. Like I'm
Thank
proud
you.
that you not only that you made a shift, but that you know, like you can testify to that today.
Hmm.
Like that's part of your testimony, you know. And I say like the testimony is in the test. They are they are that's why we have peaks and valleys. Because when
Hmm.
we rise through the valley, that's when our testimony gets to shine. That's when we get to talk about the things. And when we're in the valley, it's not fun and it's not easy
No.
and it feels alone and it feels hard, so
Hmm.
hard. Like that's real. When I talk about positivity, it is not because I don't acknowledge rough times. I know the
Right.
times can be rough. For even somebody that's super positive like me, it's
Hmm.
still really rough. So I do get it. And I do know that that's a real thing. I also know that when you just take a minute to be like, dang, I'm breathing today. Dang,
Yes.
I have a roof over my head. Like, you know, yeah, I mean, like there's yeah. I mean, I could go on and forever about it because I just think it's such a. I think when you take a second to think about the things you can be grateful for,
Hmm.
it gives you a good shift. You know.
Sometimes it's even the simplest thing. It's not snowing. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sun's out, which is not today, but being able to walk outside without falling on my behind because it's been a really icy winter here.
Mm,
Um, just looking for something to focus on that's positive instead of, it's so easy to go negative.
yeah.
So easy.
Which is also why I mean, people that are around me probably get tired of me saying like I refuse to be a part of drama, and I say that all the time. And the reason I do is because that's my safeguard. Like
Hmm.
that's just a word that I'm a hard no, just like drugs. Like I'm a hard no to drugs. You know, it's a
Yep.
hard no. It's non-negotiable for me. And I feel the
Yep.
same way about drama. You know, although sometimes in life, like drama may end up like sprinkling around you, but
Right.
it's your job. It is your job to set that boundary.
Hmm.
It is your job to say, I'm so sorry. You're an awesome person, but I just can't be a part of this conversation.
Hmm.
Whether it's drama, gossip, negative, like for me, I don't want to hear negative. Like I just don't want to hear. I don't,
Right.
and that's a boundary I'm allowed to have. Like I'm allowed to,
Yes.
this is me. I get to
Hmm.
have some protection, and that's one of them. I won't be a part of your complaining. You know,
Yes.
I don't love you any less. I'm not less sympathetic. I can't allow it into my life. I just can't.
Hmm.
Just like negative vibes. I can't. I just will not do it.
Yep.
Um, so
And
again, that's our choice.
I have found that as I have worked on myself and being a happier person, that the negative is kind of just like fallen away.
Isn't
And I
that
don't know if
crazy?
it's because I'm just repelling it or I just would prefer to spend my time, whether it be online or in real world, with people that either inspire me or that I can help or, you know, things of that nature.
Well, let me throw this at you. I think that what's happening is you are attracting
Hmm.
differently.
Yeah.
So that's so the fact that that you make that conscious effort and that you consciously are thinking of the positives and the happiness and all the things. Of course,
Hmm.
that's what you're going to attract from now on. Like if you
Yes.
you know, again, I could. This is it's a heavy subject to me. You know, and I
Yeah.
think if we go looking for the negative, we're going to find the negative
Hmm.
all day long. You know,
Absolutely. And
So
and it doesn't mean that I'm just like happy, joy, joy all the time, because like Jay could tell you today, I had a little bit of a, he could tell by the look on my face, I was seriously annoyed by a few things.
mhm.
And I had to really rein myself in and be like, no, I'm not going down this path. Yeah, I was irritated, but it didn't ruin my day. Nobody died. And we're going to move on and have a good day.
I love it. Yeah, it's not easy.
Let's see. What are you looking forward to experiencing at this point in your journey? And it could be anything.
All the things. Like physical experiences, like going to
Yeah,
do, or
yeah.
I mean,
Physical or meeting people that you haven't met, because I know that you're getting ready to have a meetup, and we can talk about that in a minute too.
yeah, for sure. I mean, those are things like I'm so. Uh, I mean, I'll what's heavy on my mind every day is um this sounds so selfish. I when I talked about 2X and shirts a little while ago,
Mm-hmm,
like when I was going like 3X and 4X, which I've been 3X, 4X for a few years, like back
mm-hmm.
and forth. And not even back and forth. Like some 3Xs are made differently, and so they fit great, and
Absolutely.
some aren't, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. And I know that's the same with 2X. I'm not too naive, I realize that all. But it's crazy because like I got to, I remember where I was like, okay, 4Xs are completely out the door. And then 3Xs were like, some 3Xs were too big and sloppy, and some were perfect, some were still too tight. And I'm like, what the heck? It's all this mind game stuff. And then when I started shifting into 2X, I remember when I went to Daytona, right out of month, right? And I remember when I went and I shopped like 2 days before. I just grabbed some extra like shirts and take, and every single shirt I packed in that suitcase was a 2X. Every one. That's the first in my entire life.
Get a little closer to your mic, kind of cutting in and out.
Oh, can you
There
hear
you
me
go.
now? So that was the first time in my entire life where I'd packed a suitcase with only 2X. So I have a point, I promise. So where I'm at
Okay.
now is like, because I talked about earlier how like some 2Xs are loose, and so I'm like mentally I don't want to go buy a bunch of 2X stuff. So I buy a few 2X things, and usually I'm buying them at like Ross or Burlington, so they're a little less expensive because that's not going to be my long-term wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of me on the daily basis is like, it got fun when I could start fitting in 2Xs, because then I confidently would grab a 2X and wear it. And then it was like, well, I don't have a whole lot of 2X. I bought a few more. Now they all fit, and I love that. And I'm not ready for an XL, but on my mind every day is that like I'm going to be in an XL, and not just for the like look at me, but more for the
Right.
like where do I fit in? Like where am
Yeah.
I confident? I'm not confident in a baggy shirt, but I'm not confident in a
Yes.
tight shirt, right? So there's that aspect, and then the other one, because you talk about like what are you looking forward to, right, and what's exciting. Well, the other is again, sounds so petty and so selfish, but I was 334 on September 1st,
Mm-hmm.
which is the day, and I say September 1st because that's the day I got the call and said I was like, I had been doing this process for months, but that's the day they said insurance covered. Like, when do we want to
Sure.
get in for your appointment? So that day was the day I was like, hey, it's all changing. Everything changes today. And
Mm-hmm.
so since that day to this day, my decisions have been healthy and good for that. You think about your whole life, I mean, I was 45 when I had surgery. So you think about all those years, and then when you're finally ready mentally and that shift happens. So I say that to say, I was 334, and I really need psychologically, I don't like to say need, but
Mm-hmm.
I need to be 233. I need to be under that, because then my heart, my mind, and my soul can say I've lost 100 pounds. My
Yes.
highest ever is 365. Do the math. I'm at about 342 today. I could celebrate 100 if I wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
but I need to celebrate from September 1st. I need to know that the day that I made a decision, the scale said 334. I need to be at 100 pounds down. There's a celebration there. There will be another celebration when I'm at 213, because that's 100 pounds from surgery day. But
Yes.
to confidently feel like I've lost 100 pounds, I need to
Mm-hmm.
see that number. And so I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that's on my mind every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And even though those are selfish things, wearing a different size shirt and wanting the scale to be different, those are the two things that I'm so excited about. Are there other things? For sure. I had the
Yeah.
opportunity to zip line, was never on my radar. I got to do it a month ago. I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to go do
Yay.
it again. I just found out I'm going to parasail in November, which will be just after my year mark. So I'm like, what will my body be like at my year mark parasailing? That
Yeah.
was radar. I hate heights. I still hate heights, but I'm still going to zip line. You know what I mean? And so there's freedom. It's so liberating, Tanya. I know you can agree. Like, it's so
Yes.
liberating, you know?
Yes. Even just the thought of going to a meetup, even if I went by myself, if Jay didn't go with me, I would never have thought about that
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. And now to meet people that are in this community, or like having done this with my industry friends, and then after COVID, because we really bonded as an industry during COVID. We had
Mm,
Zoom parties, this, that, and the other thing. And then when things opened up, we were able to go to trade shows and go meet one another. And
yeah.
it's such an amazing feeling. And it's going to be the same way with the people that we've met, on online as well. I know that you guys just look like you had a fantastic time in Daytona. And that's amazing. And let me just ask you one more question, then I want to talk about the OKC meetup just a little bit too, so you can give that a shout out.
Sure.
Um, is there anything that you just surprised you at this point in your journey? Um, and also kind of a follow up to that, how has your son responded to these changes? I know your mom is proud as all get out, because I told her she raised a good human, and she was just like, "Oh my gosh, thank you."
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
My mom's always been my biggest support. I actually want to touch on that in a minute. Remind me to go back to that.
Okay.
But what was the question like before the part about my son?
Is there anything that just really
Yes.
surprised you at this
Yeah.
point in your journey?
Um, yeah, you know what surprises me
Hmm.
is people treat you so different. Like,
Yeah.
I had no idea. I'm confident. I've never been confident in I'm the short, chubby guy. So that's always been that has been who I've told myself I am forever. And so I always have said, even since I was a teenager, I'm like, I'm very confident in who I am as a person. I'm just not confident physically. Not because I think I'm ugly, but I'm the short, fat guy. So you call it whatever you want. Like, you can sugarcoat it, you can not sugarcoat it, you can be negative, you can be positive. Either way, I'm still short and I'm still big. So call it what you want. Never thought I was ugly, but I'm short and big. And so I've always been confident, again, with my personality, but
Hmm.
not physically. Um, and having said that, it's just so crazy. Like, it's so crazy how people treat you different. Like, it's
Yeah.
so crazy. I don't know if I was naive to it, but I guess I just thought, I guess I didn't think it'd be that big of that significant, that noticeable is probably the right
Hmm.
word. Like, I did not know it was that noticeable. It would be that noticeable.
Yeah.
That's the biggest. That's definitely the biggest thing.
And that's awesome. I've noticed that
It's good
too.
and bad.
Yeah.
It sucks for when you think about it from the vanity standpoint,
Hmm.
but it's also awesome because, like, it feels good, of course,
Hmm.
which is also very, very dangerous and vulnerable. Not vulnerable. Uh, I don't know the right word for it, but it's a very dangerous feeling also for people, male and female. You
Hmm.
see it a lot in our community is people that
Yes.
have never got to feel all the feels.
Yeah.
They never got to like feel all those things, and so it's a dangerous tightrope, you know. But
Yeah. You can get in with the wrong people, because in every community there's people that are disingenuous and can take advantage of someone who's maybe never been confident a day in their life, or felt beautiful, or
yeah, but
whatever.
I'll challenge one more. I'll challenge you on that in one way because I do hear those words a lot. You know, not a lot, but some about like people taking advantage and like preying on. But the truth is, like, that's a double-edged sword because while yes, there might be people that take advantage.
Hmm.
Let's use this the stereotypical would be a male and then a female, right? So let's
Hmm.
say that I'm a guy and I am a guy and you are a girl. But let's say like you're starting to feel yourself a little bit and I'm like, "Oh, I could take advantage." Not just physically and sexually, but just mentally even,
Hmm.
right? Like
Right.
you prey on those people. Well, the flip side is that guy, we'll say Chaz,
Hmm.
has also in our community has also never felt like that. So we're not talking about outsiders
Right.
preying on an insider. We're talking about an insider to an insider. You and I, right here. Boom, boom, right?
Hmm.
So it's like I'm just as vulnerable.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah, the guy, and I know it's not always guy girl. It's often
Mm-hmm.
reversed. So I know it's not there's not a
Mm-hmm.
finger pointing at male versus female, but I'm using us as
Right.
an example.
Right.
Like I'm just as vulnerable. I'm just as
Mm-hmm.
sensitive because just like you might think, well, he's preying on me. I've also never felt the comments. I've never had, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
again just using an example, all the people wanting to talk to you, or all the attention, or all the DMs, and all
Yes.
those things. So it's like, yes, it's taking advantage, but it's also it's the truth is it's sensitive and vulnerable on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a whole long subject. But
And
move,
sometimes it can be downright overwhelming,
heck yeah,
because you're like, all of a sudden, I know I've been getting some messages from people who are like either new to the community or, thank you for sharing your story. And then that comes with a lot of responsibility
hmm
to not like lead them astray or, whatever. So sometimes it's like I'm putting myself in this position,
yeah,
which ultimately it fills my cup to help others
hmm
and to be like that. But I also can get overwhelmed at times too. Like if
for sure.
everybody needs something from me.
For sure. Like, and that's I'm glad you said that because that just it keeps you real. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is a lot, and I think we find our way as we go,
Mm-hmm.
like um social media has been a big part of my life for many, many years, but I never knew that my niche, quote unquote, would be bariatrics. I didn't even get into a
Right.
bariatric chat until I think between 4 and 6 weeks after surgery. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had seen people beforehand, before
Mm-hmm.
surgery, when I was like inquisitive, like I was curious, but never did I didn't even post anything on. I mean, I really took a back seat when I went, like, as I digested, no pun intended, the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Right.
several weeks later that I finally found the community, and
Yeah.
I didn't know that it would be my niche. Like I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
looking for it. I mean, there's been plenty of areas in social media that I've wanted to fit in, or to wanted to
Mm-hmm.
find my niche or my groove. Never did I know it would be this.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, what's crazy is that my heart is people. And so it's like I almost feel like God gave me a platform where I can be vulnerable, and it's well received,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm so thankful for that. It's not always well received. I've got haters, so which means I'm doing something right. Like somebody will hear me say that just now and they're going to be a total jerk about it, but the truth is if you have haters, it means you're doing something right. So
Well,
it
you
just is.
can't be everyone's cup of tea,
No, for
and
sure.
not everyone's going to be, for you
Yeah,
either.
for
And
sure.
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's
But
completely
to
okay.
get back to your second part of that question, you were asking about Braxton. You like,
Yeah.
how has he been? He's amazing. Like he
Yeah.
was amazing the day of surgery. If you, I was really fortunate to be on Sherry's podcast, which I encourage everybody to check out, the Unzipped
Yes.
podcast with Sherry.
Yes.
Not only is it good, but her testimony is so powerful, and her heart is huge. But when we talked back, like probably December, we talked about Braxton, and like the day of surgery, like he did this really cool. When I got to the recovery room, he wasn't in there, and I was like, I asked the nurse, "Can I call my son?" Thinking he was like in the lobby, and he had already left. And I'm like, "But what about all my stuff?" And then the nurse was like, "No, your stuff's right here." And I was still coming out of it, like it didn't all make sense to me. And I'm like, "Well, Braxton, where's all this my stuff?" And he's like, "You have 2 bags that are there. That I brought them to the room." I was still like coming. I hadn't been onto the room yet, right? I just
Right.
got there. And then I look over and there's this balloon, like a Mylar balloon, and it says happy retirement. And I was like, or congratulations on your retirement. And I was like, I think I'm in the wrong room, buddy. He's like, no, there's a balloon there for you. I'm like, this balloon says retirement. And the lady's like, no, your bags are right here. Your phone's right here too. And I'm like, Broxton, you brought everything to me? He's like, yeah, I brought it. And then I had to leave. I had to go to work once they said you were okay. I'm like, well, what's the balloon about? He's like, well, read the card. And the card was like, hey, I got you a retirement balloon because you retired your old belly. Like your old self is gone and you're the new. Like, how did this 16-year-old like even think to do that? Like,
Right.
mind blowing, right? I'm so
That's
grateful.
awesome.
So he's been supportive from every step of it. I'll go one step further than that, and that is I can see in his eyes that he's not just proud of me, like, I'm proud of you, Dad. I Not to make it a vanity thing, but it's real. I think that he is even more proud to stand next to me publicly. Not that he's ever ashamed, because I carry myself
Mhm.
confidently always,
Yes.
but I think that he's like physically like, this is my dad,
Yeah.
like I mean, I think he's really truly proud. So that's my answer to that. If you
That's
don't mind, let
awesome.
me tie back to my mom thing real quick.
Yes.
And this is by no means to poke at my mom, but because I said, oh, she's so supportive.
Yes.
She is. What I've also learned is there are sometimes you have to be really careful. And then this is just a lesson for people. I hope that we can all take this as a lesson. and I'm not even going to keep using my mom as the example, but sometimes people say things with the greatest of intentions. I am so guilty of it myself. And it's sometimes like, I can't remember. There's like a saying where people say it's, anyways, there's a saying about when you're trying to say something good, but it comes out wrong or whatever, or like there's an underlying thought, whatever. But the reality is like, there are things that I hear that are meant with the greatest of intentions, but hurt so bad.
Yeah.
For example, it's just so crazy how your face is slimming so much. You just look so swollen all the time. Well, there's nothing negative intended in that.
Right.
That's painful.
Mm-hmm.
Even for the guy who refuses to see negative, it still hurts. It
Yeah.
still hurts. It hurts so bad. Because
Mm-hmm.
all I'm hearing, like, because we're broken people, like we didn't get obese on, like we're a broken people. There's not a single person in bariatrics that's not a broken person. You can't
Right.
find me one. I don't think you will. You know, I mean, we're all broken to some degree, right? But
Absolutely.
so I guess my point to that is like, just be really careful with your words. And again, I fall so guilty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not proud of plenty of things I do and say. Um, but it's crazy how, and then something that's intended so well. I've had it happen. That's why I bring it up, because we were talking about my mom. There's been more than a handful of times in the last 5.5 months that things have been so hurtful to me and not intended at all to be, but they
Right.
just are, because we are sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we sometimes, like, we've programmed ourselves to only hear certain things sometimes, so we're only hearing, even though again it's meant with good intention, sometimes we
Yeah.
just hear that negative. And so I just say that to remind myself and all of us that as we share things with others, we should really, really careful also what comes out of our mouth. Maybe think before we talk. And man,
Yes.
I'm telling you, I'm talking to me right now because I'm the worst. I'm the worst. So I am not ridiculing anybody else. But yeah. So yeah. So that's that. I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect. Briefly before we go, why don't you talk a little bit about the OKC meetup, when it is, and if people have interest that maybe they haven't heard about it, that they can go search for it or get information.
Yeah. So, thanks for bringing that up. There's a few different aspects to it. I will plug it as an event, but more importantly, I'll plug events as a whole. It doesn't, I mean, if you come to
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma City and it can happen for you, I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really, really blessed to be a part of the leadership for that. I didn't know that was going to be a thing. I'm super grateful. It happened kind of on accident, and it was one of the best things that's happened to me since being a part of this community, because it's just really, I'm super grateful. But more importantly would be just, if you're in the bariatric world, or if you are possibly looking at becoming a part of the bariatric world, quote, I think it's really important to start locking arms with people. And a step to that
Yes.
can be going to an event. Even like, these are the calls I get. I get these calls. Well, I know a lot of people are ziplining, but I think there's a weight limit. I know a lot of people know each other, but I don't know everybody. I haven't had surgery yet, but I'm thinking about it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
perfect. Yep, there's probably a limit to zip lining. No, not everybody knows each other, and doesn't matter if you've had surgery yet, because this is exactly who you need to be locking arms with. Like, what
Exactly.
better person to sit next to at a restaurant than somebody who just had surgery? If your question is like, what will happen after I have surgery? What will I be able to
Mm-hmm.
eat? Like, oh my gosh, there is
Yes.
your personal example right next to you. Hopefully, they're a good example, right?
Absolutely.
But so yeah, I would say, like, and go to an event. Mrs.
Yeah.
Pep said it best. Just yesterday we had somebody, or maybe it was today, it was this morning, inquiring about, they wanted to go to Chicago, but they weren't sure and they were nervous. And I'm like, and I'm not going to Chicago. Like, it's just not going to work out for me. But my answer to that was, like, commit now and figure it out later. Like, just commit
Right.
to it, and all the details will work themselves out. I was scared to go to Daytona. Some people don't know this, and I have shared it with others. When I was very new to this community, somebody started talking about Daytona. I didn't know what that was. Then they said meetup. I didn't know what that was. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
knew that Daytona was in Florida. Okay. But I didn't know what the thing was, which
Right.
you don't know was the meetup that happened in the beginning of March. And then my next thought went right to the negative of, I wasn't invited. And the next thought after that was like, I'll have to have an invite. And the next thought, I mean, you talk about a negative spiral. The reality was, everybody's invited. Like, and what do you mean invited? Like, we don't have to be invited. Like, everybody's welcome. And so go to an event. If you can make it work financially, go to an event,
Mm-hmm.
because it really can. It's a really awesome thing to be a part of. And so that is my plug. Yes, Oklahoma City is April 28th through the 30th. It's a Friday through Sunday. we're actually having a Zoom this Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, where everybody, whether you're committed to going or not, is welcome to just come and hear what we're just gonna run through kind of what the plan is, and we'll have more of these as we get closer leading up. But this will just be a good little Q&A opportunity and talk about kind of the rundown of the weekend. There's also a Facebook group, and everybody's welcome. You can't only be a part of the group if you're committed, just like you can't, you don't have to be a patient already to be a part of the group. Just come and find community. If there's 120 people in the group and 20 people show up, but 100 people got to feel some love from others in the group, we did our part. That at the end of the day, whether you show up at the event or not, I need people to know that they're loved and supported, and so that's ultimately what it's about.
And along those same lines, I know that in the community, especially when I was fairly new and not putting myself out there, it's easy to feel like, oh, nobody wants me. But you have to stop and think that the panel is only 6 or 9 people, whatever. And once you're up on panel, if you put yourself out there, it's really hard to keep up with what's going on the panel and the comments. So you miss stuff. And it's not a dig on anybody by any stretch of the imagination. And once I figured that out, because I'd kind of gotten a little bit down in the dumps about it, oh, nobody likes me.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to do me. I'm going to get on and do my videos. And I'm going to start participating in some lives when I have a chance.
Okay.
Love it. And go from there. And once I started putting myself out there and being a little bit vulnerable, it's amazing how people respond. And so that's my encouragement for not just the bariatric community, but actually anything in life.
Yeah. Can I like backspace a couple on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you said something that's really the most important. Like you talked about, once you engage, it's changed, like all those things. But the more important part, not to discredit you, but you brought it up. The most important part of that is there are times where you will get in your head because you feel like you're not a part of it. I don't mean to be rude, but it is your job, yours, mine, the viewers, the listeners. It is your job to dive in as much as you want to the community, and then set your pride. This is not comfortable what I'm saying right now. You got to set your pride and ego to the side, because I do it all the time. I'll get on a live and listen. Today, I happen to be on a live, and you want vulnerability? I got on a live today, just scrolling, and it's literally as I scrolled to the live, it was Val's live. Love Val. Honestly, probably one of my favorite people on this earth. I love Val. And I kid you not, like, talk about timing. As I swipe up to it, I hear you talking about that this afternoon you're going to be interviewing me. Tanya, my head watched everybody's face for gratification. Now, that's very hard for me to admit. That's not ego. That's not like I want people to love me. I was looking to see if anybody was disgusted by that. It can happen to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can be in the chat and you can be in the comments and you can say, "Oh my gosh, there's 6 people on the screen, or 3 or 2 or 1, and nobody's acknowledging me. Nobody said, "Hey Tanya, how's it going?" Nobody said on this today, like, what if none of us said anything to Dee Dee or to Chuck or everybody that's on, Becky? Like, it's very easy to get caught in what you're in from the person that happens to be like where you and I are right now. The flip side is it's also very easy to be tucked in to be hiding behind the screen and then let the devil creeps in. Yes. And so you even said it. You're like, yeah, there was times where I didn't, I even felt it. That's so normal. We all go through that. I think even the top creators probably do, I would guess.
Oh, absolutely.
We're all human. And so I only bring that up to say that if somebody's listening or watching, and whether it's bariatric community, music community, doesn't matter. Whatever community it is, even if it's church, whatever it is, it is easy to let the devil attack, and it's easy to start getting in our head. And when I say remove your pride and ego, those are 2 words I use together, and I've used those for several years because I find that for me, every time I start to go down a rabbit trail that's negative, generally, if I can remove pride and or ego, and I realize, like, no, it's not about me. It doesn't matter. Like, they don't love me any less. And I also know, like, as somebody who is on social media a lot, and especially on like TikTok lives, it's very easy to like miss something in the chat.
Yes.
And I know people have been offended by that, maybe by me, but I've been on the other end. Like, I've been offended by it. So I do know it's very real. And I just want to I want to empower everybody to know, like, you do matter so much. And it's easy to be overlooked, but it's never intentional. I don't think it's ever intentional.
No,
And if it's
I
somebody that's
agree.
intentional, you don't need them in your life anyways, you know.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to pop you back into the back studio for a minute because I'm going to take
Sure.
care of a couple of housekeeping things.
Yeah.
But thank you for being my first guest when I'm back.
Yeah, I'm so excited and honored, and I appreciate you so much for allowing me to be. It's
All
awesome.
right, hold on just one second.
Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone for tuning in. I so greatly appreciate it. I am going to pop something up here real quick. So I've talked about this a little bit. I have, let's see, it's not going to let me do it. The Choose store. If you are interested in a Choose shirt, there's different styles. There's also affirmation shirts. Go to this website and check it out, and I'd be happy to get you taken care of. There are other people like in the bariatric community specifically that also sell shirts, and they're things we all offer something different. So I highly recommend them as well. Have a great Thursday. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in being on the show, let me know. Or if you know someone who you think should be on, let me know that as well, because this is going to be every Thursday. For the most part, we might have a couple scheduling things in there. But I'm happy to be back, and I hope it has brought you some joy or you've gotten something out of it. So have a great day. Bye-bye.